right. Thanks everybody for coming. I feel very fortunate. For close to 40 years, I've watched a remarkable return to nature and simplicity in wine farming in France. Unfortunately, I also witnessed early in my career far too much conventional, scorched earth farming, scenes truly resembling outer space. I saw growers on tractors in hazmat suits, concrete-like dirt freeways between vineyard rows, and systematically hedge-trimmed vines. This was the norm. Thankfully, today we see less and less of this. At Skurnik, we are so lucky to work with so many small domains and talented wine-growing families across France and the world. We have witnessed over the last 40 years so much beautiful and thoughtful progress towards organic and biodynamic farming, and so much more. Some of that positive movement is due to and fully represented in the efforts of the 3 young growers and families we have with us today. Changes in viticulture did not happen overnight, and it took real mindfulness and teamwork within the family that is both exhausting and costly. I think about these important developments in terms of the generations within families that is oftentimes messy. Sometimes egos and personalities don't blend, and it's both sad and tragic when things don't work out. We are so lucky to have 3 truly talented pioneers to lead our discussion today. Each were part of a positive transition of generations. Not only that, but also has the older generation working side by side with the younger. Fathers, mothers, wives, siblings, all part of the extraordinary efforts that you're going to hear about in part today. Mathieu Deiss, Sacha Geoffroy, Cyprien Arlaud. These are 3 of my favorite people in the world. I call them with questions. I love to sit down to dinner with them. Always feel lucky to be able to spend time with them in the vines and soaking up knowledge and love. Moments with growers may be one of the happiest parts of our job, my work. I've also been lucky to work with all the different parts of their families and generations. I started with Cyprien's father, Hervé, still in the vines each day in 1990. I've spent time with Mathieu's sister, Victoire, and I've spent a lot of time with Sacha's family, father, and the whole family in Champagne. It warms my heart that our work with the generation past and future is ongoing. Getting the 3 of them here was not easy. They are not flying winemakers who tour the world. They are firmly anchored in their beloved vineyards. 5 years ago, when I first thought of doing something like this, I despaired that it might not be possible to get them all together for a few days. I'm so thankful that that is happening today. I don't claim to be an expert on farming, but I like to think that over my 40 years in this business, I understand the people, passion, and quality farming, and these 3 represent all of that. I feel confident that the 3 domains and people in front of you are among the true leaders in their respective regions. That's not just me talking. Other growers, the press, with their many accolades over the years, underline that feeling. The format today is simple. Mathieu Deiss is going to start with a discussion about 15 to 20 minutes focused on terroir and co-plantation in Alsace and much else. He will pass things over to Sacha Geoffroy, who will talk about her experiences with agroforestry, co-plantation in Champagne, and much more. Finally, Cyprien Arlaud will focus on Burgundy, biodynamics, and especially his treasured Climat Maurice Anthony Premier Cru Rousseau. There is so much to dive into. I'm going to step aside. My colleague Ilya Shmolinsky is going to be following with photos and maps. After each of them does their talk, we will have about a half an hour, hopefully, for questions from you folks. Take it away, Matthew.
Okay, nice, good. Thank you for this very low pressure introduction. Okay, yeah, sorry, my voice is not so always very high, so take the micro. Okay, we're gonna try to explain as well as we can what we do at the different domain. Here. And yeah, so what is nice is that we are, for most of us, doing a part of work within common. I feel about the confrontation that we do both, but biodynamic that we do all of us, and agroforestry was also something that we share. So that's very pleasant to have this presentation this morning, and it's also because of that where we personally that I accept to come, because it's almost 6 years I didn't came to the US. Try to reduce the maximum the number of flights I take, so that's a kind of exception for me today. Okay, so what I will try to is to explain a little bit the question of the domaine Mathieu Deiss through the complantation, because it's sometimes a little bit difficult for some of you to understand what we try to do. And what is very interesting is that it's taking the origin on the idea about explaining the terroir more than the varietal. But finally, it takes a lot of place, a lot of meaning with the change, the climatic change. And so, okay, just quickly, can you just go back a little bit? So we are just there. So it's the middle of Alsace, basically, just near to Colmar. It's really the middle of the more touristic and well-known part of the vineyards from Alsace. Then, if you can just jump. This is another map just to try to dig directly on what is important for us. The domain is just in Bergheim, just here. And so this is the map you should know. It's just basically a Google map. And this is exactly the same map, but with the variation of terroir and soil. And so that's very important, because that's explaining why we decided to work terroir by terroir, because we are actually just on the middle of une faille géologique, comment tu dis ça? Fault, geologic fault. And so it's very like a mosaic of terroir with lots of variation to the expression. Okay, so just my father. For some of them who don't know. Okay, so just basically my father, when he starts, he was very not feeling well with the Alsatian way to present the wine through the different varietal. For him, it was like a kind of no sense, because he was fighting for explaining, for example, the Grand Cru Altenberg, and make a lots of tasting like today with a lot of people. And people came, spend sometimes afternoon at the winery. But 5 to 10 years later, they came back and they say, okay, Jean-Michel, we had a beautiful tasting last time. Can we taste your Riesling Grand Cru together again with some friends? Maybe that's, it doesn't shock you if we say like that. But the time you're starting to think by terroir, it's you have to imagine that for my father, it was a little bit the same than if you go to one very good Burgundy producer and just arrive on the winery and you say, okay, let me taste your Pinot Noir Grand Cru. That is kind of proof that you didn't understood what is the basic of the terroir expression, was that the place should be up to the question of the varietal. The time the varietal is stronger than the terroir just don't exist. So we had at the winery a very, very old parcel on the Grand Cru Chenambourg, who was already field blend, It was coming from the past. It's a parcel that we have been able to rent first and buy later. But that was the very, very old way to do wines everywhere, in Alsace, but also on the rest of France. And my father starting to vinificate this wine is separate. And that was beautiful because blind, everybody was able to find always the Chenambord, but not necessarily find grapes, because we had two versions, one pure Riesling and the other side this very old parcel field blend. And people was always finding for both wine the Chenambord, but not which one is which variety. So that was the beginning of the reflection. And so he's starting to dig this question a bit more. And so he's starting from the 90s to replant the Concret Altenberg also field blend. We had a lot of lots of legal issue, but we finally been able to change the appellation for the Grand Cru and to authorize the field blend on the Altenberg. And so that was the beginning of a new story. Today, just basically what is field blend, because sometimes people have difficult to imagine, but I think this picture showed that very well. Maybe you don't see that because of the color, but actually the parcel, they are completely, I mean it's completely mixed. It's not like one row of one grapes, one row of another. It's not like that. It's really like putting everything together on the field. So for example, we have some white here. This is some Pinot Gris, for example, white again, but it's just basically, and this is the Concret Altenberg, it's basically all the varietal from Alsace, completely mixed on the field, and we always harvest everything in one way, on one time. Why? This way to make viticulture have been the truly origin of what we call the appellation. A lot of people think about the appellation like something with a law to give some rules for a place and all. Appellation is coming from the French word appeler, so it's the way to give a name to something. And the origin of that was just because people was not able to name the wine on another way than just using the place. This valley, this village, this hill, and that was the way to express the character. The law is only coming later. And they was working like that. They was forced to use the name just because on the original situation, when people was really like farmer, they was putting all the grapes together, so there was no majority, no way to can name on another explanation. That was the fastest way to express the wine. So the question is basically why people was working like that, and it's the interesting point, because you know in life things are always making kind of cycle. People starting today, we are on the bottom because we use the appellation without understanding why it's done like that. But we are coming back to this. We are coming back to this because originally people used to plant all these grapes together because that was for them a reduction of the risk. Basically people was not able to, they didn't have very well selected grapes. They was not like a technical specialist of each variety. They was just using this diversity to reduce the risk and just be sure to make wine every year, because some grapes was very sensible to some disease, some other to the dryness, some other to too much water, whatever. So basically for a farmer, having a lot of diversity was the way to reduce the risk and stabilize the production. Because when you are a farmer, and you see that maybe for the milk or something else, when you produce too much, there is no cost because it's too much on the market. And when you produce nothing, you cannot pay the price to produce. So the only way to survive is to be very stable. And that's just the way farmer was living the agriculture 100 years ago. Why it's starting to be interesting? It's just starting to be interesting because the climatic change push us back to this kind of situation. You know, the agriculture progress help us to select the grapes, to be more precise for the spraying, to be more and more specialist to one monoculture. And actually, the climatic change also have been a help in a way for a long period of time because it helps to have a better maturity, and globally it was easier than before. But since 10 to 15 years, the climatic change jump on another moment. He jumped to a period of time. It's starting to be more and more difficult of the dryness, of the heatness of the summer, and actually this very rustic way to think the agriculture that our grandparents was living, it's beginning to have more and more sense. And you saw that on your, I'm pretty sure, even the lexical that you have every day on your life. You listen more and more resilient, biodiversity, things like that. This is just a modern way to put this old farming back in place, and just a very basic way to find back some more stability on the expression. And so to jump back on the Deiss, on the domain Marcel Deiss, it makes something a little bit special for us. It's that when my father started to make the field blend, it was, maybe David can remember, my father was like the completely crazy guy from Alsace who do one stuff alone. And we even have some producer neighborhoods who doesn't want to speak with us because they just thought that we are crazy. And this situation with the evolution of the climate and the market also, it moves to this incomprehension to be more and more a model for the future. So now we have a good part of the producer from Alsace who's like it's starting for them to be an evidence that we need to move to some more biodiversity. For sure, for the moment, it's not explained like that. The first level they try to do is to break the 100% rules for the grapes and use the European rules. 85% of one grapes, you can put the name of the grapes on the label. But that's already into the direction to have more diversity on the field. And so we feel more and more that we are a little bit on the logical evolution of the agriculture. And so that's very, very nice for us to see that actually we go to that for the question of the terroir, and actually this joining today the evolution of the farming. So that's something we are in a way surprised, because we didn't go in this direction completely originally for that, but really because of the question of the terroir. But finally, at the end, looking what people had done long times ago, I don't speak about the stupid thing, but the origin, the meaning, you always have a few things to pick for the future. And that's very nice. So just to make the wines you will taste later a bit more understandable, it's that the result for us is really to sort the place and organize the place. And for us, the Burgundian way to organize the appellation have the more meanings because you have like a deepness on the organization. So we start by the regional. For us it's Alsace, then few village, and you will see I mix the red and the white because for me the most important is to stay step by step. So regional, village, then the premier cru, or what we call the premier cru at least, and then the grand cru. And this is very important for us. You will see it's not an evolution with just bigger and more sugar. It's a question about being more and more defined, precise, long, and salty. And this is what is important for us. And I'm very concerning about the fact that you saw for each level this precision and this length comings. It's also to say that for a lot of people, Deiss was for a long time very difficult to understand because people was for an Alsatian wine waiting for the grapes. But now, with the range was really clear with Alsace, Village, Cru, and Grand Cru, you can jump directly to the terroir question. And after one or two wines, people don't have anymore the question for the grapes. And I think it's really the effect when you taste wines. People always ask the grapes for one or two, but then they forget to ask because they saw that it's not the meaning of what we do. Okay, I don't know if I was too long or too short, but this is really like the heart of what we do. And maybe David, you have some question or
maybe just one last point on the climate change and the fact that in some ways Alsace and Deiss, even with a warmer climate, are making wines that are maybe more balanced and even fresher than they were in the past. And which is people, I think, will say why.
Yeah, that's also a question, a little bit of taste, to be honest, because my father was liking wines. My father was on a period of time in Alsace where people have to prove that they have been able to do a great wine. Because basically, Alsatian wine was historically a local consummation, a nice, easy, original wine. And you have few winery who's taking the challenge to say, okay, no, Alsatian wines can be great, deep, long, great wine. And my father was a little bit on this idea, so he had to prove to everybody that it was possible in Alsace to do something great. And at this moment, 70s, 80s, great was a synonym to big, complex, dense. I think that now with the younger generation, we are a little bit less concerning about having to prove that, and we can be a little bit less demonstrative, and we can be a little bit more on the precision of each places. So I think that you use the most important words for a wine is balanced, because I don't look at for only dry or only sweet, or I look for wine who's never heavy on the sugar, always very balanced. Even when few wines you will taste have some residual sugar, you will see they don't taste like sweet. And the precision of each place. I would like to, that's just an illustration about, but you will speak also later, biodynamic, having some sheep back on the vineyards, but this is things we do, but just go a bit later. So, for example, I can just take the example of the Chenambour to explain this question. I don't look for necessarily do only sweet wine or dry wine. But for example, the Chenambour is a very good explanation of that. Here you're in Rigvier, and this is the Chenambour, the delimitation of the Chenambour. This is just all parcel. Here, the Chenambour, if you already visit Rigvier one day, it's very obvious. For example, here we have a deep valley just here, and during the night, we have some cold and humid wind was going down from the forest. And here we have something special, is that normally on most of the place, the wind and this humidity is just drawing to the plain. Here, the entrance of the valley is closed by Zélambert was here, with a limestone hill, And then here, all this hill of limestone is going here to Mittelwihr, Benwihr. I mean, the humid winds needs to do almost 4 kilometers to can draw to the plain. So that means here we get very long on a day, some humidity, some cooler situation. So that means that on the Schönerbau we will have some botrytis every year, whatever we decided to do. This is a place where Noble Road is part of the terroir. And the time you're starting to understand botrytis like one of the part of the terroir expression, you understand that each of all wines are very stable on the time. The Schönerbau will have always a little bit the same shape, because I try to respect this. I don't try to force to do something dry everywhere, but I don't try to force to do something sweet everywhere. We just try to fit every places. This is just an illustration, but I can explain the 25 wines like this for you. It will be a little bit boring to do this like this, no, exactly. But I just wanted to show you this example, just to make understand that the wines we do is really like focusing on each characteristic of the place. And maybe this is also one of the stronger part of our work, is that we don't try for each place to make 3-4 wines, the light Pinot Blanc, the nice Riesling, the half-sweet Pinot Gris, the heavy Gewürz. We just try to focus on what the place do the best, and one wine by place, to make it the place and the stable. And at the end, I think to synthesize a little bit, what we try to do is not to explain Alsace. We just try to make the Alsace understable by the place. Because the Alsace can be very complex through all the grapes you have, all the balance you have. You never know what you will have. What we try to do is, by the place, to make it more consistent and more true in a way. That's really what we do. I remember, can you just go back a little bit? And this is a last work I went just before, sorry, again. So you don't see that so much because it's just behind me, but last work I wanted to show you is a work what we done with a young group of winemaker that I started with some friends about 10 years ago. We had a lot of difficulties to have some support by our interprofession, so all the winemaker together, because a lot of people wanted to stay on the very varietal principle and don't fight so much for the place. But the younger generation was very concerned about the terroir, so we decided together to make a work and to make a map where you can find every name of places that you can find on an Alsatian bottle. Because it was no map with that. I mean, you have plenty of bottles with the name of place, but at the end, it's more like a marketing tool. You even don't know where it is. And so we just share, there was a 129 village in Alsace, was on the appellation area. We printed this, the map of each village, and we share the work to go to each winery, see every wine list, and find back all the names was historically used in Alsace for the expression of a place. And this map is, you can find it on the website that we done together, and I put you a QR code if you would like to have the link direct. I was planning to give you and to gift you a beautiful map for this because we printed it also, but it was not fitting the 28 kilo that I was authorized to put on the plane. So instead of that, you have the link, and that's also kind of proof of what is moving today in Alsace, and when our work is. Can put some highlight in the middle of that.
And you can go visit beautiful Alsace and get a hard copy if you...
Yeah, exactly. Also, yeah, people who wants to come one day, you're really welcome. Oh, and maybe just a last word, because this is I saw that later we're gonna taste some wine from the Vignoble du Rêveur and the Domaine Marcel Deiss. Just a very basic explanation of that. Lots of people don't necessarily understand the difference, but I mean the main difference is coming from an historic part, because the Vignoble du Rêveur is the vineyard was owned on my family side, but on my mother's side, and it was my uncle who was used to run this winery, and today I took over also this side with my wife Emmanuelle, and the other side is the Domaine Marcel Deiss with my father, but there is no such big difference of winemaking and way of think, and I hate this idea about, you know, some people have like organic in one side, and then they have another negotiation things who's conventional or things like that. It's really not what we are trying to do. It's our own vineyards, and it's everything done on the same way with the same certification. It's really what the place offer, and some places historically on my mother's side are a little bit simpler. And so we play a bit more with the maceration, some orange wine, but the farming is it's the same actually. So that's just to give more comprehension of what we will taste. Okay, I
pass the baton to
yes.
Sacha Geoffroy.
Thank you. Okay, so hello everyone. I'm Sacha Geoffroy, so I'm the fourth generation of the family Geoffroy. It's only my second time in the US, so I'm a little bit impressed. Today I want to speak a little bit about the history also of Champagne, because Champagne, it has been cultivated since 200 years only with vineyards. And I love to read old books from Champagne, speaking about the work in the vineyards 100 years ago. And when we read this kind of book, we notice that the work was really hard, because always done by hand. And but people used observation and common sense to work. And today the times change, because we have lots of technology, so it's easier to work. But I think it's very important to take inspiration of the old practices of before to bring back balance in our vineyards. So in Champagne, the vines were planted very densely, up to 20,000 vines per hectare. And that was planted with lots of grape varieties, all grape varieties like Arban, Petit Meslier, Pinot Blanc, because people were planted grapes based on what was available. That was not a real philosophy, that was more practical choice. So, so today we like to take inspiration of that. To quickly speak about our history in our family. So that was my great-grandfather that started to make its own champagne after the World War II. And as early as the 1960s, maybe you have a photo of that's my grandfather René here. So my grandfather René, he was really involved in the vineyards, and he always focused on the vitality of the soil. So at this period, chemical product arrived in Champagne, but he always refused to use it and never used herbicide, so 50 years ago. And after that, my father came back in the 80s, and he wanted to follow this way by abandoning all fertilizer in the vineyards and starting to do a big biodynamic compost. So every year we are analyzing each plot to see if it needs compost or not. And so me, I came back 2 years ago. Before I was doing some experiences in other wine region. I wanted to go out of the Champagne because but my father told me if you want to do great champagne, you have to know how to do great red wine. So I decided to go to Burgundy, and so I've been working with Charles Lachaud during 1 year, and Olivier Lamy just after. After I've been to Switzerland with Marie-Thérèse Chapa, and I finished in Patagonia and in Italy with the Rinaldi sister. And what I learned during this experience, so particularly in Switzerland, where the vineyards is really hard to work because it's the Swiss mountain, so you have to trek to go to the vineyards. But the vineyards was cultivated like a garden, and it changed completely my mind when I came back in Champagne. I had one clear idea to focus on the work in the vineyards. Yes, so we can speak a little bit about Cumières. I don't know if we have a card. Because we are located in Cumières. So Cumières lies on the southern slopes of the Marne Valley. And the village has the benefit to have a microclimate. So that's the old way of vine working. Each vine had its own stake to grow freely. And yeah, now it's our new project. Yeah, so that's Cumières here, in the heart of the Marne Valley, next to Épernay. And Cumières has the benefit to have a microclimate because it's just between the river at the bottom, and we have the forest of the Plateau de Reims at the top. Cumières, the soil is forming a block, sometimes reaching 200 meters depth, and it's rests on a colluvium composed of different sedimentary deposits and formed by the runoff of the slopes and the erosion of the Plateau de Reims. So all the vineyards is arranged into an amphitheater. We have only coteaux, no flat plots. And on the upper slopes, it's more sandy soil. So near the forest, we plant mostly meunier. In the hearts of the vineyards, it's clay and limestone. So we plant mostly Pinot Noir. And on the two borders with the two villages, it's a chalk with very steep slopes and mostly Chardonnay. But we have also field blend plots. Field blend, as Mathieu explained, is one of the oldest way to work the vine before. And it came. So my father, he has been with other wine grower in Alsace, visiting the Deiss family, and since this visit, we started to make this project because in Champagne, blending comes always after harvest, after the vinification. And it made my father rethink our approach. So why not start directly in the vineyards to blend the grapes? So we started a concrete project on one plot called Les Outrants, where we have planted Chardonnay, Meunier, Pinot Noir, Arban, and Petit Meslier together. And the goal of this project that was to do a single plot champagne without dominant of grapes, without dominant of vintage, because we do a multi-vintage of these plots, and without dominant of vessels, because we used enameled tank to be neutral and to just let the terroir speaks. Yeah, so today, usually the question we asked is are the grapes all ripe at the same moment when we do the harvest, because we harvest all together. And actually there is some difference between the grapes. For example, Arban ripens late and Chardonnay a little bit earlier. But the most important point is to be within a consistent maturity window in between all the grapes. And what we've noticed years after years, because since 20 years we are harvesting like this, this maturity window in between the different grapes is getting closer and closer. So
Can I?
yes.
It's just to make a little point about that, because when you're sitting on an office, you don't necessarily understand very clearly this question of maturity. A lot of people think like there is one grapes, one maturity. The truth is that when you're going into the vineyards and you're tasting the fruit, the first thing to understand is that it's not one maturity, it's a range. Because you have some fruit with more mature, some less. And so the first thing to have is to understand that it's a range. And all work is to make the range of the different grapes enough close to can be picked together. And the last thing to understand is that the climatic change was the most important moment for a winemaker is August, because it's during August that you have the maturity of the fruit. The augmentation of the temperature during this period of time is today, for example, for Alsace, is 1.8 degree by a jump of 10 years. So since my grandfather started, it's already like more than 5 degrees of evolution. This evaluation of the temperature during August is pushing more and more the maturity closer. I had 1 month ago a fair what I was doing with somebody who was doing research for the French government, and he's in charge about selection of new hybrid, you know. And people ask them to produce some hybrid who's close, from example, from Riesling, Pinot Gris, and all. The result was that he himself said that it's almost not possible, and first, when it would be done, the climate would have changed so much that doesn't have sense. So he himself explaining that having a diversity was the better way to have a research direction. Also, the last point is that people naturally ask, okay, isn't an answer to put some varietal who have a later maturity can be picked later? For example, not secondary climatic range, but maybe the third. The answer was, okay, not really, because actually the climate changed so much that the range is more and more compressed, and that you will have like a 5 day of difference. If you look at the range of maturity, it's not enough to justify to pick on different moments. So it's just to have a very scientist explanation of that. It's very important to understand. It's also important to understand that this field blend was historically working to be picked together because the yield was very low because it was no fertilizer, because it was no grass killer. So the maturity, the plant was really tight by the competition of the field. And so the maturity was closer. The time we're starting to have grass killer and fertilizer, the one was more vigorous, and so you're starting to have difference of maturity. And now the stress for the hydric do the work instead of the grass, and so maturity comes back together again. Just sorry, I didn't want to interrupt, but I think it's a technical point was important the time we're starting to speak about comportation.
Yeah, that diversity creates stability.
Exactly.
And what we've noticed about this stability in the vineyards is about also the disease, because just next to these plots we have one plot with 100% Chardonnay and another with 100% Pinot Noir, and with the same treatment as the same moment. In difficult vintage like 24, we've harvest 3 times more in Les Houtrans than the 2 other plots. So I think, field blend gives a better resistance also to climate stress to the vineyards, and it gives us stable yield. And after it's subjective, but this stability is also, I think, in the wine with another complexity in the wine also. So so for the field blend, that was the project of my father, and me, I push another project in the vineyards. So that's trellising. Because when I was working with Charles Lachaud, the year I was there, we were changing 15 hectares in a high vine system, so up to 1 meter point 80. And so when I came back, I was a little bit struck by the freedom given to the plant, because the plant was not controlled anymore, but supported. And so with my father, we decided to start to raise a plot. We took our oldest plot of Pinot Noir, called La Madelon. And we raised up. And every year now we are gradually convert a small area in the vineyards, focusing on hillside parcel and parcel dedicated to Rosé de Saigné and Coteaux Champenois, which where the quality impact is very interesting. So to just speak about the physiology of the vine. So the vine is a climber. So if you let it grow, it climbs, it stretches, it moves upward. And the tip of this grow is called the apex. And the apex is the key organ of the vineyards, because it produces an hormone called auxine. And this hormone regulates the growth of the cluster. It also reduces the lateral shoots. And it organizes how the plant distributes the energy. So when we don't edge the vine can grow vertically without spreading sideways. And that's an important point, because what happens above the ground also happens below the ground. And when you don't cut the apex, you can gain 60 to 70 centimeters of in additional roots in 5-10 years. So the the most important, I think, it's also on baby plants. During the first year, it's very important to not cut the apex because the root system is growing very fast. So, je sais pas si... and about the grapes, so this new vine architecture leads to smaller berries with less juice and more concentration because we have a different solid to liquid ratio. And so the plant has more leaves, so 2 times more leaves, so more photosynthesis for producing fewer cluster. So it's easier for us to reach the phenolic maturity. Because with the climate change, that's a little bit the problem to be able to reach the physiologic and the phenolic maturity at the same time during harvest. So that's a good system. Voilà. So there is a different way to do trellising. In this plot, we don't pass any tractors, so it's easy to do trellising like this. It's a Chardonnay plot here. Yeah. And yeah, for me. Yes, so agroforestry, we started this project 10 years ago in one plot, but now each year we are reimplanting trees everywhere. It's like a field blending. When you I reread some notebook of my grandfather when he was young, and every year they were planted fruit trees in the vineyards. But I think it disappeared because of the mechanization. Now, and also trellising disappeared due to mechanization. But actually, trees plays a key role in the vineyards because their deep roots access water vines cannot reach. It also creates new mycorrhiza in the soil, so it improves the soil of the life of the soil. And yeah, it reduces extreme in the vineyards, like wind and temperature variation, because the trees with the leaves can give you evapotranspiration. So yeah, it reduces the heat peaks, and yeah. It creates a new air movement in the vineyards. Yeah, actually, we planted not a lot, only 10 trees in this plot, and I think 2 years after, they were des nids d'oiseaux dans tous les birds in every
trees,
yeah,
which also is a benefit for the taking care naturally of insects and other things. That so it's a lot of positives. They're pretty too.
Yeah, yeah, we can eat apple also. So that's nice. And oui, à l'automne. Yeah, so all these old practices, I think that's not nostalgic practices. That's pragmatic practices with the new condition we have in the vineyards, and they allow us to restore balance. And yeah, we believe that I think a living vineyards, a living ecosystem can lead to stronger vineyards. Yeah.
That's Cyprien.
Okay, so thanks, David, for the invitation and to be part of this beautiful team. As you heard this morning, it's in 20 minutes. It's a synthèse what two domains they're doing, but believe me, it's a huge work to do all what you heard this morning. And I will try also to illustrate for my part the same kind of work we're doing through the example of what is a climat in Burgundy. Then we used to call it more what it's a terroir. But as you heard this morning, or what I also understood from the two great explications we had this morning, is a terroir, one appellation, is not only one place. It's a place understood by a wine grower, by a wine farmer. And this place will have a different expression and a different meaning depending who is farming it, with which approach, which philosophy, and which sensitivity. So this is why I thought, the question on the first slide, Ilya. What is the concept of climat in Burgundy? And to explain this concept of climat, maybe you heard about it more recently with, because Burgundy had been recognized by the UNESCO organization 10 years ago as they recognized the concept of the climat des vignobles de Bourgogne. So it was the 10th anniversary last year, and I decided to be pragmatic as well. It's very important when you're a wine grower, to be pragmatic, I think, even you make biodynamic. I took one example of the Ruchot. Ruchot is a premier cru of Moret-Saint-Denis. So just to give you a short presentation of the domain, Domaine Arlaud is located in Moret-Saint-Denis, so it's located in Burgundy, in Côte de Nuit, in the village of Moret-Saint-Denis. I am the third generation, family estates created by my grandfather, run by my father, and I joined the domain in '98. So maybe I'm the oldest from the table today. Time is going, and it's also nice to be there today with a bit of experience. So the domain is 15 hectares. We are biodynamic farming, certified with Demeter Biodivin. We mainly make red, and I took the map of Moret-Saint-Denis. So the great job Mathieu is doing in Alsace with the classification of regional wine, village, premier cru, and grand cru. I've been lucky because this job has been done 100 years ago with the classification, official classification in 1933 of Burgundy with the appellation. But I will say the job has been done more in advance 600 years ago. And on this map, you have the regional appellation. This is the village one level, the premier cru level, and the grand cru level. So the grand cru, they're always middle of the slope. So over the grand cru, some plots have been replanted, but they're not middle of the slope, so they are not grand cru. The middle of the slope is the best exposition for many reasons, and I will try to tell you more about it. This is where is the Ruchot. Ruchot is the more south premier cru of Moret, neighbors with Chambol-Musigny. You have two premier crus. One is the Clos de la Bussière, is the monopoly from Georges Brommier, and the other one is the Ruchot we share with different producers. This is the view we have when you are in the Ruchot. You're facing to the church, to the village, so it's really inside of Moret. Of course, there is what we see, and there is what we don't see when we're behind the vineyards. And what we don't see, you've seen a similar map for Alsace. This is the geologic map of Moret-Saint-Denis. So it's like a beautiful painting, not easy to understand something, but just to explain, Different colors means different kind of geology, different kind of limestone, and you're back from one kind of limestone to the different one on a way of 250 million of years back to the Jurassic. Burgundy appears maybe like Alsace, but I know maybe I'm wrong, but for Burgundy, the slope of Burgundy, of the Côte de Nuit, appears with when the Alps born. You had a big break, the Vallée du Rhône, up to Burgundy, and on this break, it was just one plate. One piece of the plate fall down, the other piece stay up, and on the break, you have some failure, and on this break, this is where the vines they are planted. And when the breaks happen, on the part we stay up, you have some failure, and those failure they became gorge, and on those gorge became small river. They spray sediments right there. The part on the slope we stay more less broken. They are full limestone. That's where the Grand Cru. So you have Clos Saint-Denis and Clos de la Roche there. You have Clos des Lambrais and Clos de Tard there. And just below, on each side of the sediments been sprayed by the river, appears also part of limestone had not been completely broken. And for some reason, I don't know why, but you can have differences and big differences. And with the Ruchot, it's interesting to know the geology, because I don't know why, but especially in this plot, appears a very high proportion of iron, mineral. I don't find anybody to explain me why, but the thing is, the point is, when we've done those geologic map, we work with one woman, is Françoise Vanier, is very known in Burgundy, and we dig for Moray, we dig everywhere, small hole, and we look the soil, and we did analysis, and we've seen in the Ruchot this oolite ferrugineuse, so it's pieces of iron, you can see it, very small one right there, but you can really see it in the limestone, and it's very interesting because with the geology you also understand why in a specific spot you have vineyards and you don't have forest. Every spot in Burgundy very rich in iron, in mineral. There is one is very known, is Vaune Romanée. It's full of iron everywhere. And it's not a hazard if the DRC, the Romanée-Conti is in Vaune Romanée, it's not a hazard if the Amoureuse is in the Amoureuse, very rich in iron. And it's one of the common characteristics in Burgundy, where you find iron, you find vineyards, and sometimes when you find great climat, below you find iron. So this is a photo of the village. So I took the photo facing to the church. So Ruchot is all this area. So it's a total of less than 6 hectares large, divided by different producer. And as you say, and it's also the explication of what is a climat. A climat is a place which is existing for a long time, designated with its geology, is soil, of course. I didn't talk about the soil, but above the geology, the limestone, you have clay. It's mainly clay. In the Ruchot, it exists 4 kinds of different clay. So that's like a paradise for the vineyards. You get the iron and also get the diversity of clay. And plus the geology in the soil, you have the microclimate you were talking about with the Chonambourg. And the Ruchot get a very specific microclimate because it's surrounded by 3 walls was almost like close the plot and protect the plot from the cold wind from the north. So it's north facing, south facing. And this cold wind also have an influence on the maturation of the skins, the peps and the stems. And the Ruchot had this privilege to have a very consistent temperature. And the temperature is very important. Remember, I show you where how the Grand Cru, like the Clos Tard just above, it's middle of the slope, and we always like to say, middle of the slope is the best exposition if you want to take the sun, and it's true. You have the good mix of limestone and clay. But one of the point we talk less about it, and we had the confirmation more recently in Mauritania because we've done also very scientific studies. The temperature, middle of the slope, is always the same. It's a very consistent temperature. When you have a very warm vintage, it's very warm, and the warm go up on the top of the slope. It's like the vine is suffering from the heat. When it's cold, the cold temperature go down, and the plots in the bottom get frosted, or they don't ripe properly because it's too cool. And middle of the slope, same temperature, always the same temperature. It's like the middle of the slope make the balance with the temperature. And one thing, vines age, maybe like Earth, is too strong, fast, and quick variation of temperature. Today it's warm in New York. I think this weekend will be like winter. And the vines can't wear a shirt or a scarf. So it loves consistent temperature. And that's why also it participated to the expression of the wine. So we talk about the geology, we talk about the earth, the soil, the microclimate, of course the exposition. Ruchot is not middle of the slope, but even it looks more flat if you come and visit. You have these chords into the plot. So I try to materialize this. And this is kind of, exposition is very important for the vines because it keeps the cold when it's more cooler weather, but it keeps also the humidity, and it participated to have this more consistent temperature. So one more time, when you give to the vines what you look for, the iron, the clay, a consistent temperature, and a cool place to live, it increased the expression of the place in the wine. So it was one picture took one day with it's more rare, but it happens a couple of times with 4 horses for the plowing. It was a very beautiful day. So the next slide is, so we're taking some height. In the middle you have the Ruchot, or the Ruchot climat. And this slide is to explain you also the historic dimension in the concept of a climat, which is also very important because Sacha and Mathieu, they explain you, and same for me, they explain you what they're doing now, because also the historical things, the historic of the plot. And I think we both making the wine we want with our proper feeling, with the knowledge of history. And the Ruchot and the climat, the concept of climat will never exist with the historical dimension. It's a good example because the two neighbors of this climat, they are two historical climat of Burgundy, stabilized, the Clos Tard at the 12th century, and the Clos de la Bussière 700 years ago, both by 2 abbayes. So at this time, He was the religious, the Cistercians monk. They had times to study, times to pray, and they had times to make wine. So they choose those two places, and they never move, they never change for more than 700 years. And trust me, the Ruchot, when you're there, you know that nothing has been farmed except vineyards for more than 700 years. The history of viticulture, Alsace, Champagne, Burgundy, it's back to 2,000 of years with the Roman. But about the concept of the clima, the identification of a place to make a specific wine would be named with the same name for that's many centuries exist in Burgundy, and it has started 700 years ago. So when you farm vineyards in the Ruchot, you really have the feeling to be a winemaker, to be like people that were hundreds of years ago. And it helps to understand what you're doing and why you have certain conviction and certain feeling who makes you doing now some specific practices or going back to practices that were very natural. One of those practice is the pruning. So the pruning, we've been changing the farming, but one thing is the same for centuries. We prune the vines. We prune the vines because, like Sacha said, the vine is going high, and if you don't prune it, it will touch the sky, but the grapes will be too high to pick it. So we keep it lower, and we prune every year the vines. And I just took one photo. When I studied at school, more than 30 years ago, we were learning a modern technique of pruning. And with this, it was the truth at this time. Many vineyards have been farmed this way, and it was a big mistake, but we were not respecting the way of the sap is going into the trunk, into the plant. And more recently, Sancerre was very affected by some disease, and many plants were dying. So it's back to 2005. And they went back to an old technique. So one more time, there's nothing new in the wine world, but they were back to a technique. They name it Guyot Pulsar. So it's one of the techniques, but it exists others which respect the way of the flow in the plant.
Are you talking about ESCA, right?
ESCA, yeah. The disease was ESCA, but you have many other problems if you don't respect the flow of the sap. So we went back to respectful pruning, which was the kind of pruning we should never forget. But history is the history. Huh? We had 2 wars through France in the last 100 years, and I hope no more. So sometimes we people they die, people they forget. The modern agriculture came, so yeah.
Just quickly, it's just to put in context also. This modern way to prunes was kind of possibility offered by the revolution of the agriculture. Because fertilizer, grass killer, and all, it pushed the wines to be very much more vigorous. So the flow of the sap was not so much important because you have so much energy down that how people prunes on the top, that's okay because the wines was just growing. The consequences, the fact that we have more and more disease because of that, is also some of the result about the reduction of the vigors because of the climatic change, because of the fact that people turns to be organic, so more competition with the grass, so more difficulties for the wines to have a correct a modern flow of soap.
Yeah.
They find back some more like physiological, normal soap, flow of soap. So people have to think back how the wines are working in a way and take more respect from that.
Yeah, it's completely true. Thank you for this precision, because the things to remember is there's not one good way of pruning. There is not one, it's the example of the pruning, but there is not one truth for the pruning. Depending of how you farm the vineyard, where you are, which variety, what is the climate, and you have to adapt your pruning in the good circumstances. So now we went back to respectful pruning, because it's true, the vines get more stress. Everything you heard this morning, and the few things I still have to tell you, it had just one goal, and that's our job. Making wine is not natural. I mean, it's not natural because every plant of vine has been grafted, has been planted, pruning, plow or not, or treating. And even it's not natural, we have to adapt to reduce the stress on the vines we're putting on it. We like our wine growers, when we're pruning, we're putting some stress on the vines, and we can make some mistakes. If we prune and respect the good way of the sap, it's less stress for the vines. When you get very high heat, the sap will run properly, and the vines will be more healthy. So of course, we have the benefit of the horse plowing. We've seen, and also talk about that, you can make the choice to don't plow the vineyards, and it's also one option. It's better for the microorganism of the soil if you don't plow. If you plow, you oxidize, you get the sun, you kill some microorganism, and plowing also have an impact on the healthiness of the soil. But my choice so far is a kind of compromise. It's also one thing we do every day, compromises. It's to continue the plowing, but to do it with horses. So every Grand Cru, Premier Cru have been plowed by horses since 2003. So it's more than 20 years, and we have very good result with these techniques, not compacting the soil. We also, is it weaving? Yeah, weaving or no?
Braiding, trellis.
Yeah, trellis. So same approach, more recent for me, since 2003. All the Premier Cru and the Grand Cru now have been done this way. We don't cut anymore the apex on the top of the can. And we have very good, beautiful harmony in the vineyard. Less stress, one more time, in the vineyard. We do our proper compost, so it's the same from organic farm. It's very helpful. You have to, if you're a wine farmer, you can't consider to always take to the vineyard and never bring back anything. So the compost plus the love and the care is one thing you can bring back to the vineyard. The biodynamic also is a very good, respectful way to farm the vineyard. You can use the plant. You can have a phytotherapy approach on the vineyard. The vines, one more time, they're like us. If you treat the vines gently, you will suffer stressless, make better grapes, and you will make better wine. So, just a few pragmatic, experimental, and governmental publication, just to show you. This is the one comparison with the conventional farming, only for the soil and the microbiology of the soil. Which, one more time, the soil is very important. The soil is alive. It's not just a place to grow vineyards. The soil is the microbiota of the vineyard, and if the soil is very alive, I mean, the soil, you will get less erosion, more resilience, and a better healthiness on the vines. Conventional farming, organic farming, and biodynamic farming, and just to show the part, the green one, is the part of the soil with the highest microorganism activity. So when you're conventional, this part is less important as biodynamic part. In Burgundy, we're still plowing, so we still have a part of the microorganism that are affected by the plowing, the oxidation we're doing on it. If you take the same one, I didn't brought it, but I could bring it for Alsace. Alsace, if you don't plow, if you have this grass in the middle of the row, you will increase this green part of very healthy, active microorganisms life in the soil. And the last one, I wanted to show you one more time. It's a very scientific experience we've done on the Ruchot, and which is also participate to the expression of what is the climate. We talk about the farming, but the biodynamic, you can hear many things about the biodynamic. This is one of the many aspects about the microorganism in the soil. If you farm biodynamic, this is biodynamic, organic, and conventional, we study the links between every microorganism. If you take just 1 gram of earth, does anybody have the idea of the number of bacteria, mushroom, and yeast in 1 gram of soil? Just tell a number. It's more than millions. 10 million. 10 million of bacteria, yeast, mushroom in just 1 gram. So imagine if this gram is alive with some bacteria in it, they all get connected to each other. And we study that, and this is the proportion with conventional and biodynamic connection. So it's minimum the double of connection you get with the biodynamic. So one more time, there are things we can see, other things we can't see. If we, 3 hours, if we telling you good things about the biodynamic, for me, at the beginning it was a conviction, okay? But slowly, step by step, and now more and more people, they go into this direction because it's not only conviction, it's really a huge benefit for the soil. We love it. For the vines, we're spending a lot of time in the vineyards for the healthiness of the vines and for the wine. For the wine, because all this harmony, balance, as you said, balance is very important. It's harmony, balance. You have in the vineyards, you have more, if you have it in the vineyards, you have more chance to get it into the wine. And I've been on the Chenambourg, I've seen the view above the plot on the village and the view. I've never been to your plot, but seeing the photos, the vines, they look beautiful. And if you come to Ruchot, be in the Ruchot, and you will understand there is a kind of harmony, and if you can feel this, so it's the end, the conclusion. But if you can see it, like the view, if you can feel it, like the vines, they look very healthy. When you're a wine grower, you have the feeling that this energy. Okay, we're talking about energy also sometimes into the wine, but if you come there in both vineyards, you will feel this energy, you will see it. And that's what we're trying to put into the wine. Because if you have it in the plot, you will get it into the wine. And it's more than just acid, sugar, tannins. That's the other dimension. I think we've been working on it. Is the soul, the spirit, the energy, the feeling you will get into the wine. So it's more easy to get it if you do some techniques. We experiment, we adapt, because everything is always changing, the weather and our taste too. So it's all together in what we call in Burgundy a climat. And I hope this example helps to understand what we're doing, what I'm doing. Thank you.